All right, hello everyone. So this video is for ramping up on just how to use the Unreal 4.27 editor. 5 is out, and we'll be switching to that next year. But for now, it's 4.27. Anyways, if you don't have Unreal on your computer, you're going to have to make sure that you download it. So to download it, you just do a search for download Unreal Launcher or Epic Launcher rather, and you can get it from Mac OS, PC. Clicking download, you'll need to sign in. So sign in with your school email address. It may ask to confirm it, and just take care of that. Make sure that it's your school email. You'll have this thing called Quixel that you'll also be able to have connections to if you use your school email, and you can download all the textures, these awesome textures for free that you'll hear me refer to as PBR textures. So you download it, and once you install it, you're not all set because you still have to install the engine. So let's look at what we have here. We have the main launcher here. A lot of information for developers. A lot about games that are up and coming, and downloads games that are in it. You'll have I don't know what samples is. I guess just a bunch of sample objects and cool stuff. But it's really neat. It has a lot of, it's very helpful. When you're a new person at a game company, people are also extraordinarily helpful. They want you to succeed. So we also have a marketplace. This is where you can get a lot of assets. Some of these cost money. So with all of my classes, you shouldn't have to spend anything extra in it, except it's good to have a drawing tablet, a little Wacom tablet. In VR worlds that this video is made for, we're going to have you like downloading some assets, but do not choose the ones that cost you money. You don't have to. And I'll show you how to find assets for that soon when we get to it. Now the library is where we have the different engines that you can run. I have 4.26, 4.27, and 5.03. So when you first start it, some people say it only gave me one option. When you first start it, you go to library. It may say launch, and it will have like it'll have 5 in there. So you'll get in here. You'll probably click the new thing, install a new version of the Unreal Engine. This is what you want to click on first before you click on anything like that. Click on that, and it will give you the newest version. But you can, if you click on this little down arrow over here, then you can get back to a lot of old versions. I don't know what those are. So you can get a lot of different versions. You notice it doesn't have the versions that I already have over here installed. It's not going to install the same one over it. So once you choose a new version, it's going to say downloading and installing, and then I think prerequisites or something like that. I'm not sure, but it loads up. It has to get everything all set up to actually play. So when you and the one we're going to be working on is this one, 4.27.2. It may only have 4.27, and when you click on the plus sign and puts it over here, it'll update it to 0.2. So when you get it all installed, you're just going to click on launch. Say running, and it's loading. Right, you're loading. It's loading up on the second monitor. And I'll bring that down. And then we get this little guy. So select or create a new project. In all of our stuff, we're going to do games. We click on next. And so we could do a few different things. One is virtual reality. We could click on that one, and that works great. The reason why that you can use virtual reality, the plugin, or you can use like third person or first person, is the VR template has it set up so that you can grab onto things, or you can move forward step by step by step. The first person one is just like a lot of pre-made games, and you just move forward. So you can still do that in VR. The only thing is, if you're prone to being nauseated while you're in VR, you might want to choose the VR plugin. As I point to the screen, which you can't see, you may want to choose this one instead. But I'm going to choose first person because I'm not prone to that, and also the assets are a lot smaller, so it should run on a machine with maybe not too much memory. So I click on first person and next, and all this stuff is good to have all set up. Just leave it where it's set up, and then we want to choose a location. So I have it on my D drive, and then I'll just call this temp, no spaces, to 2323, and then create project. So now it's loading it up, and move it down to this monitor. Okay, so here is your basic setup screen. It's if you've used Maya, you'll understand the way to navigate. However, there's one thing that's a little different from Maya, which you can change back, and that's the panning. It pans in a different orientation. Thank you very much, Epic. We can fix that if we go to Edit, this main menu up here, Editor Preferences. We type in mouse, and we go down to Level Editor, and we go to Invert Middle Mouse Pan. We press this little button over here, and then we click on Set as Default. Yes. Yes. And then OK. Now then we close it, and now it pans correctly. So if you're not familiar with Maya, which I'm going to presume that you're not familiar with Maya with this, and we'll go through the... I'll still make references to it for those who know. Anyway, so here's our main viewport. This is our temporary scene. This is our content browser. This is where all the assets are going to be placed. There is a hierarchy here. So we have content is the lowest one. And this is all the stuff that's already set up. So we'll use some starter content just to give you a demonstration. These are some snap settings. Some of them snapping objects to a scale grid, rotating the object, and snapping to a grid when dragging the objects around. So you'll notice that if I hover over it, it's going to tell you what it is. Another neat thing about Unreal is I think if you hold down, say if you hold down Shift or Alt or Control, well, it's not letting me do it now. Anyways, you have some really good information about what the these different settings are. So let's look around this scene. So what you do is you hold down Alt and left mouse, middle mouse, and right mouse buttons are the things that move around the screen. So left mouse button with Alt held down will rotate the scene around. You'll get that pretty fast. The middle mouse button, you just hold down and you can pan it around. And the right mouse button, left and right, will zoom it in and out. You can also use the middle mouse button, sometimes helpful, sometimes just a little bit annoying. So I tend to like to go with the right mouse button. You'll notice sometimes it does this weird thing where it doesn't want to go forward anymore. So then you're kind of forced to use the middle mouse button. So here's our scene. You'll see there's a skybox box up here. It's saying lighting needs to be rebuilt. That happens if you're moving objects around and you're like, there's a strange shadow on the ground. I don't know what it's doing there. In order to rebuild the lighting, you'll go over here to this build button, but don't press on the build button because that makes the whole project. We click on this little down arrow and we click on build lighting only, and that'll build it. And it's usually pretty fast. It'll give you directions down here. It depends on your computer also. So building lighting. And while it's doing that, it should be fast. Over here we have an outliner, and this shows every object that's inside of our scene. So there'll be things like this skybox is a scene. All these little objects are a scene. And if we can click on one, and it'll show that right over there, the one we have selected. Now, as soon as you click on one, you'll notice right down over here we have details, and this has all kinds of details about the object we're currently looking at. So you can change various elements of it. It's a static mesh. You can simulate physics. That means that if you go and you play it, then you can shoot it. So I'm going to go into play mode. Be aware that when you go into play mode, the first thing you have to do in order to start it is shoot. So it usually is kind of loud. Hopefully it's not going to scare you. So we click on play mode. You go into the first person. Click shoot. Yeah, that was loud. Sorry about that. Anyway, here comes some more. So now we can shoot these guys. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit because that's probably a little loud. It's still loud. Okay, so and navigating, moving around, you're probably familiar with it. Mouse will move around. A goes to the left, D goes to the right, W goes forward, S goes backward, and space jumps. So we can shoot things, we can shoot them way up into the sky. It's amazing. So that's first person. And we can see here also that we have, here's the camera that the first person is looking at. And you can see that there's, I don't remember why there's two guns. There's a reasoning for that. But then we also have the arms. So you don't want to mess with any of that stuff because that'll kind of break the game. You'll have to fix that up. These other little things that we have, this is light source. And you can see that the light source is aimed downward. There's an arrow pointing down there. And you can see there's a shadow that's right over there. If we were to change that, you'll notice that the light source changes with everything else. And we'll probably have to rebuild the lighting too. All right. So these are all of our buttons on the top, various things about it. The settings over there, our content browser. One of the important things to remember about this is that there are multiple maps in each Unreal scene. So we could go to File and Open Level. You'll notice it says Open Level, New Level, Save All Levels, and Save All. What in the world is all that about? Well, this was a weird thing when I first started working with it that I had to get my mind around. So we'll go to first person BP. All right, here's maps. So we only have one map in here. If I made a new map in there, I would be able to go to multiple levels within this whole Unreal file. So just keep that in mind. With VR Worlds, you're only going to do this base level, so it'll always open up to that. So let's, other things to remember. Oh yes, when you are rotating something, like I was rotating that light, there are, just like in Maya, if you press W, there's move. If you press E, it's rotate. If you press R, it's scale. So W-E-R. There's another one in Maya that's Q for just select, but that isn't here. We have, so if you notice here, we have a little world coordinate system over here. It's showing Z is up, Y is over here, X is back there, So if we press W, we can move this thing around the scene. If we move it, you can move it up. If you move it up and it's over the ground, you can press End on your keyboard and it will drop it to the ground. If we press E, then we can move these guys around and it'll show you the angle that you're moving it at. Things like that. We can scale it by pressing R. We can scale it symmetrically, or we can scale it asymmetrically with just one axis, like that. In order to press End, it needs to be over the ground. All right. So let's look at what it looks like when we actually place something into the scene. So we'll go to starter content, and then we have a bunch of stuff in here. Textures. Textures is your 2D flat textures. This is not textures that you're placing on there. You place shaders on the objects. To go up, you just click on the previous directory over there. Materials is these are the shaders or the materials that you place on objects, and these are made up of certain nodes that we'll look at in a second. Props in the starter content, bunch of cool little props that you can place around. We could place a chair if we click and hold, and then you drag it into the scene. And then if you want to get close to this thing, just press F for Frank or focus. And then we can zoom in on that. We can place a nice bench. We can place a pretty little bit of foliage. Place a rock. A lot of cool stuff. Small statue. Oh, look at that. That's cool. All right, so, and if we go into play, loud sound, we should be able to shoot these guys. Nope, we can't. So, a fun thing that you can do is that when you have an object here, most of these objects are going to be static mesh that you're creating. There's BSP brushes in 4.27, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well in a second. But if you want to make something shootable, and this is always fun, you have the object selected, you go over to the details, you click on Simulate Physics, and let's do that for the other ones. Let's do that for the, oh, we can do that for the rock. Why not? You should be able to do that. Well, that's absurd. I've never seen that before. And turned it off. Huh. Can't simulate physics on that either? Ah, you can do it for this sculpture. That's cool. Maybe it breaks it. So play, loud sound. And then if we shoot the chair, look at that. Woot! And we can shoot the sculpture. I think I got it right out of the ballpark. Okay, so now let's look at materials. So for VR Worlds, which this is ramping you up for, you're going to be making a material for your landscape. And I talk about how to get into that in the next video. But let's look at what these are. So your landscape, when you make it, I talk about how to make the hierarchy correct and organized. If you want to make a material, you right-click in this gray area, and you select. You'll either do a new folder to put like a landscape folder, but what we'll do here is we'll click on material and just do a test one. So this material, if you double click on that material, will bring up the material window. And this is where you'll add textures. You'll take a texture from you can grab a texture. I think you have to actually grab it from the content browser, but you can drag them into you can drag them in from the Explorer. So I'll show you what happens if you make a material. Let's take this brick cut stone. So I click and hold, I drag it in here, and now I have a thing called a texture sample. So this is called a node, and this is your base shader. We have all kinds of details about it over here. And the really cool thing about making shaders in Unreal is, and also you can move this around by the right mouse button and zoom in and out with the scroll button, is that everything is all plugged in using like audio cables. So you click on one of these guys, click and hold, and then you just drag it where you want it to go. Since this is a regular texture called a albedo or a diffuse texture, it has the color on it. It goes into what's called base color, and that is right there our shader. That's the base, the simplest form of shader you can make. So if I click apply, we've just made that material. I click save, and I'm going to close my material. So if I go back to this content, we have this test shader. So I can go to an object. So I'm going to choose this guy here. There's a already texture on it, but I want to give it this new texture. So if I click and hold, because I have that texture selected, I can either drag it on top of it, or I can drag it to this material slot, and it will put it right there onto our texture right there. Now you can't change the tessellation of this object because it's of the texture, because it is it's a static mesh. And but we can go in, big loud noise, and I think I changed that to physics. Did I? Oh, it already was. So we can look at that. Looks pretty cool. We can jump on it just like so. So you can make some really neat textures, provided you have good textures to begin with. All right, so that's really the basic overview of Unreal, and the next one for setting up the landscape will show you how to make that landscape. The landscape, just to let you know, there's different modes, and you'll be clicking on that. You'll just go to a different mode, and you can see that it's starting to do that. So keep an eye, watch the video, and it will talk all about the size of the landscape, everything you need to do, how to set it up, how to paint on it, and I believe that the assignment isn't due until like the midterm, because we're going to be playing around with it and adding stuff into it, and just discovering all the things that we can do. And then while people are playing with this stuff, the plan is to get people to go to the machines that have the VR headsets and run around and level and see what it looks like. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next video.